Good morning. Let's talk about turkey hunting this morning. I'm headed into work, as you guys can see, and I've been in the woods a couple times recently, and I've been chatting with some friends about their turkey hunting as well, and I got some thoughts that I think are going to be helpful, and wanted to pass them along to you. So the one-liner, the punchline is one size does not fit all when you're turkey hunting. One size does not fit all when you're turkey hunting. To build a quick analogy, as a hunter, you probably hunt multiple species, turkey and deer. Most deer hunters also hunt turkeys, vice versa. When you're deer hunting, you understand that there are lots of variables at play, like food source, time of day, wind direction, whether it's rut or not, and you will or should be hunting differently, appropriately. There's not a one-size-fit-all, or shouldn't be if you want to be successful, when you're quote-unquote deer hunting. Easy, makes sense, yep, I get it. So with turkey hunting, there's a similar thing that I want to share, and this isn't necessarily in particular regarding the actual trying to call in the turkey. Like, let's say you heard him and he's on the way in. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is locating the turkey. There's not one size that fits all with regards to quote-unquote finding or locating a bird. So my thoughts are over the course of a turkey season, there are mornings that you will go out there and they're not gobbling. They're quiet. I don't know why, but they're not. And then there'll be other mornings out there where they are going crazy. You are going to hear multiple birds firing off at daybreak for no reason besides they're excited about the morning. They're happy. There will be both types of mornings where they're quiet and mornings while they're just going crazy. So that's one variable, and we can't control that, but that is an important variable, whether they're vocal this morning or they're not. Another important variable is whether you're on a big tract of, let's call it public land. It could be private, but basically a big tract, but for argument, a big public tract versus a smaller private tract. And for, just to throw a number on it here, so a small tract, the land that I hunt in particular is 150 acres. I'm going to consider that the small tract. And then let's say something, you're on a chunk of public land, or, you've got significantly more than that, 500 acres and up is going to be your big tract. So second variable is the size of the tract. So we now got two variables with turkey hunting. One, whether they're vocal or not that morning, which is out of your control, and two, the size of your tract. Now, when you listen to, I don't know, turkey hunting instructional YouTube videos or whatever, or when people tell you about how to locate a turkey, they typically give you a one-size-fits-all, this is how you do it. You get to your spot before daybreak and you listen, and then you try to, wherever you are, that spot there, you try to elicit a gobble. You might do that with a crow call. You might do that with an owl hoot. You might do that with some soft yelps. And if nothing happens, you move another so-and-so yards up and you try it again. And then if that doesn't work, you move another whatever, couple hundred yards, and then you try it again. And you work your way through this property trying to get them to fire off. You are trying to elicit this, some people might refer to it as a shock gobble. In other words, they're not necessarily doing it spontaneously on their own. That's what's taught. And it's I guess what I'd like to bring up today is I don't like that one-size-fits-all approach to locating a turkey on a small track. Now, if you're trying to find a bird on 500 or 1,000 acres or a big chunk of public land, I think that's okay. You can move hundreds of yards in a straight line in a direction and call and listen, and you're still moving in that same single direction, calling and listening, and I think that that's okay. But on a small track, and if you get somewhat centrally located on a 150 acre track, which is the size of the piece of property that I have, if you get there on a morning in the dark, you get in there and it's still dark out there, and you just pull up pull up a chair, sit down and listen. On a morning when those birds are vocal, spontaneously vocal, you can hear them anywhere on 150 acres. So you're gonna know if they're there, and you're gonna know where they are. And typically when they're vocal, they're not just gonna gobble once. They're gonna gobble, and they're gonna gobble, and they're gonna gobble, and they're gonna gobble. And you can move on them fairly accurately, the exact direction and pretty close to the exact distance, because they're typically just going crazy. So on a vocal morning, you get there, you just sit down and you just wait, and they're gonna blast off. It's textbook. It's a vocal morning. It's awesome. However, what I think a lot of people do is they'll, again, specifically on a small track, they're going to get to the property. They're going to listen for the first initial 10, 15 minutes after sunup. They're not going to hear anything. This is, again, I'm switching gears. This is a morning where they're not vocal. They are not going to be talking this morning. Why? I don't know. But in that scenario, what a lot of hunters do is they will move, 100 yards, 150 yards, and they'll try to elicit that call. And they'll move 150 yards and they'll try to elicit another call. And they'll do that, walking the perimeter of the property, basically walking through this 150 acre tract, because that's small enough that you can make a loop on it, relatively quickly that morning. And, every morning you can walk the whole, not every inch of it, but you can easily walk the perimeter of it, no problem. So what I'm thinking is happening sometimes, you get there on a morning that they're not vocal, and you walk the property, walk right through it. Even if it's the perimeter of it, you're walking through it. Turkeys can see you a long way away. They can hear you a long way away stomping through the woods. So you are adding a significant amount of pressure to these birds that don't like pressure. And remember, this is a 150 acre tract. It's not that big. They can move easily. They will move easily. They don't like the pressure. So let's say morning one, you get out there, small tract, you don't hear anything, you walk through this property, you walk the perimeter, and you try to elicit these shot gobbles. You're there for an hour and a half, whatever, walking, setting up, calling, and nothing happens. So you leave, hunt's over. And then next time you have an opportunity to get off work, or next weekend, you do it again. So another weekend, it would appear as though they're quiet again. So now you do it again. You walk the property, you try to elicit these shot gobbles, and you're adding more pressure again. And once again, this is a morning where they're not talking. They've had enough. This is the second time this big person is messing them up. They're applying pressure that they don't like, and they move. They leave that 150 acre tract. Now you go back the third morning, whatever it is, a week later, 2, 3, 4, 5 days later, and that particular morning would be a morning that they're vocal on their own, but you pushed them off, and now they're not there. So you essentially have screwed it up by walking through the property, pressuring them and pushing them off. I think that happens a lot. And what I'd like to suggest is another option, possibly better, specifically for a small track, is you get there in the morning and you have a comfy chair, take a camp chair, whatever, and you sit down there and you listen. You don't call, you don't walk, you don't move. Remember, this is a 150-acre track that if they're anywhere on that track and it's a vocal morning, you're going to be able to hear them. And they're vocal. They don't need you to help them get it out of their mouth. It's coming. So your job is to get there and wait and see, is this a vocal morning or is this a quiet morning? And if it's a quiet morning, don't walk. Just sit there for an hour to an hour and a half and then leave. And by doing so, you will keep, protect, preserve your small 150-acre track. You will not be pressuring it. And then you come back the next day and you do the same thing and you see, is this a vocal morning or is this a quiet morning? You do the same thing. Sit somewhere, try to sneak in and be quiet, not a flashlight. Don't drive right to the center of the property. You don't need to be in the center of a property. When they are so loud and it echoes in that quiet time of the morning, you will be able to hear them from one corner all the way to the other corner. So get in there. Let's say it's the second morning. They're quiet again. You leave. You go home. Go get on with your day. The third morning is a vocal morning. And they are blasting off. It's the third morning. They're blasting off. They don't need your help. But now they're there. You didn't scare them off. They are on your property and they are firing off. Now is the morning you move. You get as close as you can, and the fun part of turkey hunting begins, trying to get them in range to pull the trigger. So anyway, I'd love your feedback and your thoughts on that. Is that something you agree with, disagree with? Thoughts, comments, questions? Throw them in the comments. All right, guys. Good luck out there in the woods this season. Bye.